So now we come to the testimony of community. The Quaker testimony of community is the committed and conscious effort by a group of families to live in cooperation and interdependence. As a practical matter, to accomplish that, the members of the community must live close to each other. But close is a relative thing. Orthodox Jews live in real community with each other and, more often than not, within walking distance to their shul or synagogue. The Amish and Old Order Mennonites live within a reasonable buggy ride of each other, as they have no central meeting place. The church gathers in the members' homes, and each family hosts the affair in turn. These church-synagogue-centric communities were the norm for most of American history, and for that matter, European history, before corporate employment and automobiles freed people from the burdens and the benefits of community. Now, Americans are free. They're free to pay over $1 million in principal and interest and property taxes over a lifetime for the privilege of sitting alone in front of a TV or computer screen in a very modest home box. Because that is what Americans do in their homes. They watch TV or some other screen for an average of 5 hours per day. Of course, when we are young, we dream of writing the great American novel or learning to speak Italian or play the piano. Then we start our working life and commute an hour or two each morning, work 8 or 10 hours, and commute an hour or two home. Some of us may have invested huge sums of money in many years of our lives to gain qualifications so that we could pay for a much larger and better appointed home box to watch TV in, and a much fancier car for that commute each day. But mansion box or shack box, 8-foot plasma HD TV, or cheap laptop, our off-work hours are spent in front of a screen. And there is a good reason for this unhappy phenomenon. Our lives are so very complicated and our brains are so overstimulated that there is simply nothing left in the tank. We need to rest our bodies and our minds, and we have been conditioned since childhood that we should take our rest in front of a screen. Of course, more screen time is continuing the overstimulation your brain has endured all day. Then there is the paradox to end all mysteries. While Americans are overstimulated, we are also bored to tears. Just imagine a time-motion study of your life. Woke up at 6:40 a.m., checked email, social media, news site. 7 a.m., prepared microwave oatmeal and coffee. Spent time in front of a computer screen watching an idiotic video a friend sent via social media. 7:15, consumed instant oatmeal and coffee. 7:25, departed for work. 7:30 a.m. to 8:50 a.m., commuted in miserable traffic while listening to the same music since high school. Ad nauseum. The weekend time-motion study is even more depressing, if that were possible. Is there any wonder that people feel the need to jump out of airplanes? Complexity. Or 24 hours of traveling? More complexity on each end of a vacation that they hope will make them feel alive, not to mention have something to post on social media. A community is a voluntary organization of mutual assistance and interdependence that begins in the home of the family, where the children are raised, and extends from there into the community. No community can stand for long without a balance between giving and taking. Those practicing simplicity and integrity will be in a position to contribute to the well-being of the community. The raising of happy, healthy, cultured, and educated children into fitly functioning and well-adjusted adults, this being part and parcel of our well-being, is our primary responsibility. A community and its members must have an ethos of intergenerational stability, or the community will not last. People die, and some members of the community will change their minds and move away. If the community does not produce children in sufficient numbers to replace these losses, the community will collapse. It then follows that the children must be imbued with values that perpetuate the community and develop a culture of matching men and women into child-producing couples. If the community's culture allows outside influences like international or national politics to interfere with the codependency between the members of the community, all is lost. Just imagine a community of 25 families where the women are at the men's throats for perceived unfairness in gender roles. How long do you think they would last? The testimony of community requires families and children. Importantly, a community must have economically and reproductively successful men. There is no such thing as community in the absence of children and excess capital. And that requires productive and successful men who provide sufficiently for their wives and children and still have surplus resources such that the family can contribute to the community. Prosperity is a must, and it flows from the frugality that is part and parcel of our testimony of simplicity. What is the point of putting in all of the effort to construct a community of like-minded, cooperative people that are destined to implode in much the same way that has every commune that ever existed? No community, for example, the Shakers, has ever survived for more than a single generation via recruitment or proselytizing new members in place of establishing families and raising children. A community of adults will bury all of them over any 50-year time frame. Ergo, there must be replacement adults, people who were raised to identify with the community and who are committed to the survival of the community, or the community will collapse. There has never been, nor will there ever be, a thriving intergenerational community of people who do not have and raise children. It then follows that childless groups and childless belief systems, but not childless individuals. This is important. No one denies their humanity or their place in the community. But childless groups and childless belief systems are anathema to the idea of community. Community requires physical proximity and goodwill. There is no such thing as an internet community. Hugs and prayers over social media are not a meaningful expression of community. A community must be comprised of members who have time, talents, and some excess resources. There must be give and take. Interdependence means by necessity that there will be times when you will be in need and can depend on your neighbor, and that there will be times your neighbor will be in need and can rely on you. If you have a family and you are an hour's drive away, well, reliability becomes an issue. Community also requires a local mindset for work, play, school, gatherings, and traditions, and elder care, unless euthanasia is part and parcel of the ethos. And that's only a half tongue-in-cheek jab at the abortionistas. Not only will we die, but many of us will experience the indignities of old age or illness. It then follows that a community must produce babies, raise children, and benefit from the efforts of productive young adults and productive mature adults. A community will often have to contribute to the care of non-productive elderly and the sick over and above what the family can handle at any one time. Like it or not, and creation does not care what we want, relations by blood and marriage, the type of marriage that produces children and intergenerational wealth, will dominate. I'm not going to pull any punches here. I traveled and witnessed a number of Quaker meetings of primarily aging and childless political activists, mostly from the Friends General Conference. Well, that is not a community. It may give some people a fleeting sense of security, but in the final analysis, it is an example of self-delusion and failure. I understand that is a harsh observation, but it is better to learn from the mistakes of others than to learn them by repeating them. This is not to say that everyone must produce children. There are people who, by their very nature, like the LGBTQ community, who will not create a practically significant number of children. Such people will still get old and frail and will need the offspring of other members of the community, that is, people who went through the lifelong marathon and trial by fire of raising children from infancy into functioning adults, to care for them in their old age. Now, to be fair, while benefiting from interdependence, the childless must make other contributions that are of equal value to the community during their productive years. That is, the production, accumulation, and maintenance of capital. To reject this is to accept the violence and coercion and the theft of resources from other people's offspring at the point of a government gun. And friends, nay, good people, do not resort to force, coercion, and violence to achieve personal, moral, or political agendas. And they do not hire other people to do such dirty work for them. Might, even a majority, does not make right. The community must not countenance its destruction from within. It is not a coincidence that collectivism is so highly valued by the childless. We need to help such people understand these realities. Community means the rejection of outside politics and other distractions. There can be only one political agenda: the well-being and continuity of the community and our way of life. For we are all mortal. If we want our community and our way of life to survive us, then life and the family must go on. Children must be given life and then formed by their parents and extended family and the community into functioning adults. I do not deny the humanity of people who do not wish to produce children. I am pointing out that in the context of the testimony of community, such people must make compensating and equal contributions to the well-being of the community, or they are not part of the community at all. And they most definitely must not be permitted to destroy the welfare of those people who are forming the next generation of the community with any kind of political machinations. Feminism, collectivism, and any variety of authoritarianism, identity advocacy, or victim construction will extinguish the community by destroying the bonds of affinity among the members. People who wish to have a real and intentional community must make an unflinching examination of this. There are no examples of thriving intergenerational communities operating under any of these belief systems. Our community will not survive them either. Why would we go through the effort to build a real and intentional community and welcome the elements that will destroy it? Families, productive and fertile men and women and their children, will not tolerate communal extortion of the production of their lives. They will depart and search for more welcoming groups. National and international politics is divisive and self-destructive. People who insist on centering their lives around the things they do not genuinely influence are incapable of community, preferring to serve the interests of an image of a politician or guru on a computer screen rather than themselves, their family, and the community. It has been my consistent observation that when people have nothing of value to contribute to anyone, they distract themselves from this sad state of affairs with politics, protest, and other meaningless activities. I always like to say that simplicity comes first, and I think that's true. But without community, even with a family, we are alone and adrift. The life practice of the first two testimonies of simplicity and integrity absolutely must have the creation of a real community as the next logical goal. And here's the truth of it: proximity is not community. This is the end of Chapter 6.
Hi, I'm Greg Jeffers, author of the best-selling book, Prosperous Homesteading. I'm an author, writer, blogger, and homesteader. This is my labor of love. My latest novel, 7 Years of Famine, is available now at Amazon. Thank you.